Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial on Doc's guitar as written by Doc Watson and played by Tommy Emmanuel. Let's get the usual stuff out of the way first. The full lesson is split up into several parts and only the first part will be released on YouTube. For full access, you can check out my website or my Patreon page. Both offer different perks at different pricing points, so there should be something for everyone. If you want the tab and notation file, then do head over to the website, look up the song and click on the music notes icon. That way you'll get a 20% discount. Doc's guitar is sort of a fingerstyle standard and most players who are getting into the style will encounter this tune sooner or later. And today we are looking at Tommy Emmanuel's take on this tune. We'll address the elephant in the room right away: the speed at which this song is played. The original recording by Doc Watson was already a speed monster, clocking in at 150 beats per minute. This is even more impressive when you realize that Mr. Watson gets to this tempo only using the thumb and the index finger, nothing else in the picking hand. But of course, Tommy won't be outdone and his version reaches peaks of an astonishing 180 beats per minute. And this is counting half time: 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you want to get a click on each quarter note, you have to crank the metronome up to 350 or 360 beats per minute. And my metronome doesn't even go that high. Luckily, the song sounds great on lower tempos too. Joe Robinson, who is also one of the most accomplished fingerstyle players out there, has a version that tops out at roughly 140 beats per minute. And I'm sure that is purely a choice and not because of him being technically limited to that tempo. But a part of how Tommy reaches that incredibly high tempo, apart from having played the song for 40 years, is because he has optimized Doc Watson's version and he threw out anything that would limit the speed potential in any way. This is sort of the Formula One or drag racing version of Doc's guitar. In that light, it's also important to mention the fact that I was able to find alternative fingerings for the chords with the thumb over the side of the neck, but in this particular case, those alternatives will limit the speed at which you can play the song. Whatever you decide to go for, keep the tempo low, keep your picking hand relaxed at all times. If you keep this up for 40 years, you'll be able to play it just as fast as Tommy. Okay, straight to playing then. The guitar is in standard tuning, capo on the second fret, just because that is how Tommy is playing it as well. And I'm using a thumb pick. A thumb pick is not necessary if you want to play this song at a slower pace, but if you want to go for those triple-digit metronome settings, then a thumb pick is probably going to be essential. I'm going to dive straight into the intro, well below, and I really mean well below concert speed, to give you a good look at what you're up against. Here we go, the first 8 bars. 8 bars in total. As you can see, just a standard super classic Travis picking pattern. But there are a few things that we can say about the chords. First, let's go over the chord shapes. You start with a simple C chord, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 1st fret, ring finger, middle finger, index finger on the A string, D string and B string. Then we move to an A minor chord. It's perfectly possible just to play a standard A minor chord shape, but by chasing the utmost efficiency, Tommy plays this chord shape with the middle finger across the D string and G string on the 2nd fret. So he gets this chord shape, and this is actually one of the very first songs where I can manage to get those 2 notes clean just by using the middle finger. Normally I'm not any good at this, so do go ahead and try. Maybe it clicks for you as well here. So C to A minor, and then to the F chord. Tommy uses the thumb over the side of the neck, index finger is still where it is from the very first chord, middle finger, if you played it like this, can also stay exactly where it is. And then, important in this case, is using the pinky and not the ring finger on the 3rd fret on the D string. giving you first fret with the thumb over the side of the neck on the E string, pinky third fret on the D string, middle finger second fret on the G string, index finger first fret on the B string. It is also possible just to play this with a standard bar, but at the higher tempos you're going to have to be pretty quick. And then when changing to the last chord, which is a G dominant chord, Tommy keeps the pinky on the D string as he moves over to this chord shape using only the ring finger on the third fret on the low E string and the pinky third fret on the D string. And that F note that rings out from the F chord, either with the thumb over the side of the neck or with the bar, that sort of gives this chord change something that can sustain between those two chords. I think in Doc Watson's version, he lets go of all the notes to move over to the G chord, which sort of gives you a small break. And in Tommy's chord voicings, you get something that can ring out as you move over to the G chord. So C to A minor, either with the middle finger or with the two fingers, moving to F with the thumb over the side of the neck or with the full bar, and then moving to G dominant 7. Picking pattern is always the same thing: thumb pick on the root note, then middle finger on the B string, thumb pick to the D string, and then index finger on the G string. 1, 2, and then moving to the A minor chord, 3, 4, to the F chord, 1. Now the root note switches over to the low E string, 1, 2, and it sticks to the low E string, 3, 4, as you play the G chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Also notice that in this section you're not applying any muting in the picking hand. It's all open. It's just rambling through the strings and letting everything ring out. You play that small section 3 times in a row, so 6 bars in total. First time, second time, third time, and then the last time C chord to the A minor chord, and now quite often that G string, that last one, is already open, so it's basically A minor 7. 3, 4, and then ending up on the full G chord, bass note, then D string and open B string together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So bass note on the D string, open B string, bass note on the low E string, open G string, and back to the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to end up back in a C chord and head into the first verse. That was the intro. As always with Tommy, when the tempo is this high, it's quite easy to explain because all the excitement is coming purely out of the tempo, and at this pace you'll also see that he doesn't apply that many variations throughout the song. So one more time, that full intro, slowly. Standard A minor chord. Now maybe the A minor chord with the middle finger only. Maybe with a full bar. Open G string. And into the C chord. So as you see, just because it's always the same thing, I can show you each and every variation in fingerings just by playing through the intro once. Let me do it one more time, slowly. I'm going to put the magnet on the guitar so you can have a good look at what the picking hand is doing. But in this case, it's always the exact same thing. Here we go. Was the intro, probably the quickest 8-bar intro explanation I've ever done so far. Now let's dive straight into verse number 1. As with the intro, I'm going to dive well below concert speed and give you a first look. Here we go. into verse number 2. Short and sweet, but there's already a lot going on. You start with a standard C chord, exactly the same one as in the intro, and normally Doc Watson always starts with the A string and the B string at the same time. Now, whenever Tommy is coming out of a different section, the bridge or the intro, he drops that first melody note. And you'll see that this actually makes linking it with certain single note licks a lot easier. So we start just by playing the A string, and then Tommy initiates the pull-off on the bass note on the D string. So A string, then you drop down the pinky on the 3rd fret on the high E string, and you play it together with the bass note on the D string. 1, 2, and you pull off to the open E string. 1, 2, 3. Back to the A string. All bass patterns, I'm guessing also because of the tempo, are 2-string bass patterns. So we're not alternating to the low E string, we're just sticking to a bass part between the A string and the D string. 1, 2, 3, bass note on the A string again, and then you drop down the pinky on the 3rd fret on the B string, and you pick that before you head back to the next bass note on the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you pull off to the 1st fret on the B string as you play the bass note on the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you have problems with this, then you do just exactly what I did now. You just loop it again and again and again until it clicks before moving into the next bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Always again and again and again. Then we move to the F chord. Same voicing as in the intro. Tommy again uses the thumb over the side of the neck. I'll give you the alternative with the bar in just a second. You start with the low E string, 1st fret, and an open G string, and you immediately hammer on with the middle finger to the 2nd fret, ending up on that same F chord again. 1, 2, bass note on the D string, and you pick the B string separately before finishing up the rest of the bass part. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, if you have trouble, loop it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can play it with a bar as well, but then you have to go for this. You can go for a full bar down below with the ring finger and the pinky, or just with the ring finger. But you start out without a bar, so you're lifting up the index finger, hammer on with the middle finger to the 2nd fret, bass note, and then you drop down the bar to get that 1st fret on the B string. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's perfectly possible, but I cannot guarantee that this is going to work or this is going to be efficient enough to reach those really high tempos. Those first 2 bars. Then you move back to the C chord. Now you do play that A string and B string at the same time. 1, 2, and now you play the melody note, 3rd fret on the high E string after you've played the bass note on the D string. 1, 2, 3, and you pull off as you head back to the bass note on the A string. 1 and 2 and 3. Same thing then, pinky to the 3rd fret on the B string, and again pulling off as you head to the bass note on the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is actually the original Doc Watson melody that you're going to see pop up all over the rest of the tune. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we move to a G chord, the same one that we played before, ring finger and pinky, 3rd fret on the low E string and the D string, open G string together with the low E string, 1, 2, 3, so together G string and low E string, D string, B string separately, back to the low E string, and now we add the middle finger to the 2nd fret on the G string, and we pull back off to an open string as we play the bass note on the D string. That's where you need to end up. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the full pattern. And again, loop it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Always the same thing over and over again. Those were the first 4 bars all the way through. Let me put them together one more time. And back to the C chord. The good news is you can now play 60, maybe even 70% of the song, because every single verse is basically this. There's just one more variation on the G chord coming up, but in the next 4 bars, we're starting with the exact same thing, the same C chord. Exactly the same thing as the previous 2 bars, and then we move to a standard G chord, or even just a part of that. Low E string, 3rd fret, middle finger, 2nd fret on the A string. You start low E string together with an open B string, 1, 2 to the D string, then an open G string in between 2 bass notes, 1, 2, 3 to the A string, 2nd fret, first time of the whole song that we're playing a 3-string bass pattern. But now the tricky bit, as you play the bass note on that 2nd fret, you have to hammer on with the index finger to the 2nd fret on the G string. And it's quite possible that you sort of have to twist your hand sideways a little bit to get into the correct position for that hammer on. 1, 2, 3, 4. After the hammer on, you play an open B string and one more bass note on the D string. C chord, 2, 3, 4, 1, and back into a C chord. So just a standard C chord and then 3rd fret low E string, open A string, middle finger 2nd fret on the A string, and back into a C chord, ready to dive into the 2nd verse. Maybe that last section on the G chord, because that is probably the trickiest section up to this point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. If this is really giving you trouble, then stick to a 2-string bass pattern and play it like that. So leave out the B bass note if that whole twist sideways is giving you a headache. If you're aiming for the high tempo, this works just as well. And all I'm doing now is I'm sticking again to 2 strings instead of fitting that 2nd fret on the A string in there. Those last 4 bars all the way through. Straight into verse number 2. Verse number 2 is basically a full repeat of verse number 1, apart from a few variations. Before we head there, I'm going to slap on the magnet on the guitar so you can have a good look at the picking hand again. Here we go. And then we're ready to dive into verse number 2. Let's have a look at that straight away, because only the last 2 bars are different. Here we go, verse number 2. Verse number 2. The first 4 bars, exactly the same thing. The next 4 bars, basically again the same thing. And now you stick to that F chord, and Tommy does one special trick. He hammers on with the thumb from the open E string back to the 1st fret whenever he enters that 3rd bar. 1st bar, 3, 4, 1, 2. So on the 1st beat, hammer on with the thumb, open E string to the 1st fret, bass note on the D string, and then the first fret on the B string separately. 1, 2, 3. A thumb shifts up 1 fret to the 2nd fret. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same picking pattern as in the intro. E string, B string, D string, G string. And then to the same G dominant chord we played before. 1, 2. And again the same picking pattern. E string, B string, D string with the thumb pick. And then dropping down to a C chord, you play the A string and the B string at the same time. And then a quick, short strum right after that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we dive into the bridge. One more time, that full section, those 4 bars. And you also notice that all the way at the end, whenever I'm doing that hammer on 2nd fret, 3rd fret, I'm letting go of the muting and I'm really zooming in on that bass part. Again, it is possible to play it with the bar, but again, it's probably not possible to do it at those really high speeds. Then you would get this. Same hammer on as before. You can even do the same hammer on, just hammering onto the 1st fret again, D string, B string, and then you have to transfer to this chord shape. Middle finger, ring finger, index finger, 2nd fret, E string, 2nd fret, G string, 1st fret, B string, before ending up on the G dominant chord. And then I would probably, if you're using this chord voicing or this fingering, I would probably just shift up the middle finger and drop down the ring finger on the D string for the G dominant chord. And you would get this. Hammer on. That would work as well, but I do not know up to which tempo this is going to be efficient enough. That was verse 2. Again, magnet on the guitar and all the way through this thing. Here we go. And that was verse number 2 in full. The good news is you can now already play well over half of the song, maybe even 60–70%. The only remaining parts we have to look at are bridge 1 and 2. That is something for the next part of the tutorial. I'll see you there.